alla conferenza stampa di Split e ho il piacere di chiamare e di presentarvi nell'ordine interprete Anya Taylor-Joy, Io limiterò a gestire il traffico delle vostre domande, faccio solo una prima domanda a Shyamalan. Non ho mai capito, vedendo i tuoi film, se c'è in te più claustrofobia o claustrofilia, cioè gli spazi chiusi, quanto ti attirano nella vita e quanto come regista e quanto ti inquietano, quanto ti fanno paura?
I guess it's really the limitations that come from closed spaces that interest me. You know, if you don't know what's on the other side of the door. You know, limiting what a character knows is the most interesting way to create suspense. So if they're in a place where they visually can't see and you can't tell what's on the other side, and you know, if we're doing, I use as an example, kind of like if two people are in a house and you hear a noise upstairs. I thought we were alone. Immediately starts to create suspense when they thought they were alone, but you hear something. It's what you can't see that's important.
Thank you. A voi? Se intervenendo dite, vi presentate con nome, cognome e testata, grazie.
Introduci qualche potere. I have a question to Mr. McAvoy. Usually we ask to actors how to prepare their character. Now you had to prepare 8 different characters. How did you work out? Because it's stunning performance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, every job it can be a very challenging thing to just prepare one. So preparing 8 or 9, I think in this one was definitely a bit of a challenge. It certainly just in matter of time management, you know, try to get it all done, but also try to make sure that you had enough, not to make it reductive, but you've got enough tricks that you can make them all seem different, you know. When you kind of run out of physical gestures or physical posture, you know, you're like, oh geez, oh. But then you learn that you've got way more at your disposal than you thought you had, and working with Knight a little bit in Skype before I turned up in Philly for rehearsals, and then again in rehearsals, we were able to refine that together and really make sure that each character had their own distinct and individual personality, but also physical life as well, which was very important for me.
Avrei una domanda per ciascuno dei nostri ospiti. Volevo chiedere al signor Shyamalan qual è dei suoi film, secondo lei, quello più misconosciuto, quello meno apprezzato, più ingiustamente non apprezzato. Poi volevo chiedere al signor McAvoy quanto è più divertente interpretare dei personaggi negativi e così sfaccettati rispetto a un personaggio come in X-Men, ad esempio, comunque in genere con un personaggio che in un film d'azione con molti effetti. E alla nostra protagonista volevo chiedere, così giovane, come ha fatto ad avere la capacità di trovare subito 2 film così notevoli per il suo esordio? Chi l'ha consigliato oppure è stato un colpo di fortuna?
You okay?
No.
Apologies, but Anya can't actually hear
I'll tell you
it.
what
She's
she
not getting a
said.
chance.
Hi. Yes, hi.
Yeah, nice.
I'm here.
Are you hearing now?
Yeah,
Alright, good, right. Do you want to answer first? Are we getting more? Oh shit.
All right. Thank you. But I'm going to hand it over to Nate. You go first.
You know, it's an interesting question. I guess just by its nature, Lady in the Water would be the film with respect because it's the least seen. You know, it's the least seen of my movies that I've written and directed. It's very kind of, you know, quirky and specific. You know, these last couple of films have really kind of, you know, embraced humor. I really, you know, I enjoy making people laugh and having this weird kind of sense of humor about things. But I've learned that it's easier when the overall movie is in a specific genre. So that if it's in a psychological thriller, and then I can honor the other things under that banner, I think the audience receives it better. They can take in those flavors. And Lady in the Water wasn't a psychological thriller as its kind of main genre. It's a kid's fantasy. And so it was very hard to sell and to connect with the audiences when they have a different brand when they hear me. But it's a very personal movie, obviously, to me. And the small group of audience that has seen it are very, like, it's religion to them. Like, they go crazy. Like, when I meet people on planes that have seen it, they go crazy. And so it's a very personal movie. That's the answer.
Thank you. I don't know, really. I like it all. I like doing the big stuff. I like doing the little stuff. And also, big budget doesn't mean that it's a big idea, and little budget doesn't mean that it's a small idea. This was a very large part, and represented a huge challenge for me. The fact that it was a small budget didn't diminish anything. So I really don't see that much of a difference, really. I've been on really fantastic big budget experiences, and I've been on terrible low budget movies. So, everything depends on the director, your co-stars, and the quality of the script, and your ability to play the part. And if you've got all of those things going for you, then you're going to have a cracking time.
And you know what, thank you. And I think I just got lucky. I don't really know how I ended up here, but it's been an incredible ride, and I'm really grateful that everyone's trusted me to play these roles. I really love my characters, and so I feel very privileged to play them. And yeah, I'm just lucky.
I don't think she's lucky.
You're very good.
It's just true.
Sometimes there are actors that have great craft, and they don't allow you in, and you go, wow, she's a great actress, and he's a great actor, but they don't do the emotional opening of the door inside of them, and they're kind of dazzling you with craft. And then there's newcomers sometimes that don't even know that they're doing it, but the window is open, just flat out open, and they allow you in, and they don't necessarily have the craft yet. They haven't learned it over decades of training and things like that. They're kids or teenagers, and she falls in that category, and it makes complete sense to me that she got the lead in this, the lead in The Witch, the lead in Morgan, and keeps on going, because it's an internal choice, maybe one that you're not even aware that you're doing, but you're allowing us in, and that is like a gesture of empathy that is at the essence of acting.
Thanks.
Thank you guys for that question.
Cacioppo Nocturno Cinema. This is your second film produced by Jason Blum. I would like to know, as a director, how change your perspective of making a movie, because he has a completely different approach in terms of producing a film compared to the traditional Hollywood movies. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good question. Ultimately, Jason has his own company and he makes his movies. Like when I made both these movies and asked Jason to come on as an advisor, as a partner, as a big brother to me. It's strange, it's not, he doesn't actually make these movies. He doesn't teach me how to make the movies. We're making them, and Jason is a champion of original filmmaking. That's why I want him on my movies. He has proven that smaller movies can be very, very profitable and can reach a large audience. He believes in it, and so both of us kind of fighting for original movies is in essence why we're together, kind of fighting for this right to tell very, very unusual stories that we don't have to do $200 million movies for the whole world to be excited to come see it. I really get along with Jason. I think he's a great taste. And so when I did The Visit, I shot The Visit and then showed it to Jason and then said, what do you think? And he's like, oh my God, I love it. And then we went in together to Universal. And then this time, I sent him the script and I said, I'm going to make this movie and what do you think? And obviously he really was happy. But I'm lucky to find people that are where I am in storytelling. So like when I ask a producer to come on to a film, like Scott Rudin on The Village, or Kathy and Frank on Sixth Sense and Signs, kind of matching sensibilities to the where I am. And so Jason's just very lucky, because there's not a lot of champions in Hollywood for original movies, and he's the king.
Manuel Sacchi, My Movies. A couple of questions. The first one to Mr. Shyamalan. I wanted to ask you, there is so much expectation for a Shyamalan twist when we watch your movies, that I want to know how much is the percentage of enjoyment, of making fun of us, especially in this one you make so many twists that I'm curious about your fun in this situation when you have to conceive these twists. And the second question is a curiosity about maybe if there are other examples of movies about split personality, multiple personality, like for example Identity by James Mangold, the first one that comes to my mind, where an inspiration you saw, maybe we watched these movies, or maybe a comparison, you watched these movies before making this one. And this is a question also for Mr. McAvoy, actually. Thank you.
Well, with regard to the first part of the question, I definitely, I know everyone says twist, 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 twist. This is not at all how I think of it. Twist is almost like a parlor trick, like, it's like, and it's not like that. Really, it's film structure is what we're talking about. And I enjoy thinking about how to tell you the story of the murderer, or tell you where you are, and we start the movie at a press conference in Milan, right? And but what I don't tell you is that this is a future world where there are live murders, and then you're actually, how do I inform you of that? Is the film structure? And so what you're saying is the twist is the moment that the information becomes clear, right? I'm holding back information through the movie as I'm telling you the story. Anya's character, Casey, what does she know? Oh my gosh, the beginning of the movie. Is this Saw? Is this going to be like a Saw movie? Is she going to get shot? No, it's not that. Patricia shows up and she's funny. And wait a minute, this isn't what I thought it was. And it keeps evolving, and her character gets more and more and more information until the end. And then when we leave her character, I give you one more piece of information that she's not even aware of, right? That gives context to the piece. So it's film structure when we're talking about how to tell stories. What is the order and how do we do it? And so I'm super inspired by that. I don't go and watch a movie and then try to make a movie like it or something like that. In fact, I'm more motivated by doing something hyper original. Weird movies have inspired me for this movie. I'm not sure. He's writing Hitchcock over here. It's funny that the movies that stylistically affected this movie are surprising, I guess, to you. Like I watched Altman, a lot of Altman movies while I was making this movie. So you see a lot of zooms in the movie, a lot of slow zooms, a lot of holds. Cachet, this French movie. Dogtooth, a movie from Greece, all about how to create tension and drama and make things shocking just with the frame and the camera. So it's kind of like what you're eating at the time, and independent cinema and actually international cinema is a big deal. By the way, this is a total aside, but we have a foundation, and one of the things that we give away is a night with me at my house to watch a movie in my theater. So people bid on it for charity, and then they all come to my house to watch a movie. So we had 20 people in my house watching a movie, and the movie I picked was The Great Beauty. It's an Italian film, and I showed it to them because I knew this group in Philadelphia wouldn't have seen it, and so I talked about the movie and how much I love it, and the montage style. If you guys haven't seen it, it's unbelievable movie. So I love Italian cinema.
I have a very bad film education, and I've not seen probably half of the films that journalists have been saying, did you watch this, did you watch that, did you watch Silence of the Lambs, did you watch Identity, did you watch this, that, and the next thing? I'm like, no. And I really don't get to watch a lot of movies, unfortunately. So what I find is that when people ask me the question, where do you get your inspiration? Did you reach out to other actors? Did you reach out to other performances? I always feel like, no, my inspiration is the story.
Yeah.
I don't need to look to the world to find my inspiration to tell the story. The inspiration is in the story that he wrote. And I need to find, all I need to find is the best way that I can help tell his inspiring piece of entertainment, you know? But yeah, I do need to watch more movies. I'll give it a bash.
I think I've got it.
La prima a Mr. Shyamalan riguardo il cameo finale del film, se anche ironicamente ha mai pensato di fare un Shyamalan Cinematic Universe come la Marvel e superare come numero di cameo Stan Lee. Per James, se in lavorazione, oltre alle personalità che vediamo in scena, ci sono state anche altre personalità che poi sono state tagliate nel montaggio finale. Mentre per Anya volevo chiederle che differenza di approccio c'è tra un regista esordiente come Robert Eggers di The Witch e un regista, un autore con molti film all'attivo come appunto Night Shyamalan.
Ooh, I'm really interested in that last question. I want to hear that one. You know, I'm still trying to figure this out and about what makes me tick, what makes me excited to make films. And as you probably tell, I don't sequels. I don't mean it in a pejorative way. I don't know why when I sit down to write, you know, the idea of writing a sequel or something is hard for me. I don't know why, because maybe the joy of writing is about discovery, and if I already know the characters, I feel like that's I'm not, why am I, you know, is there something left to say, that kind of thing. That being said, so that's why I generally don't, you know, I own the rights to almost all my movies, so that they don't unnecessarily make a sequel, you know, that kind of thing. That being said, I'm trying to answer this question without being specific, so forgive me for being a little dancing around it. There was always an intention to tell a three-part story of one of my movies, and so I have every intention of finishing this story, and I feel ready to tell the end of this story, but one of the, I don't know if you're asking me this, I'm just telling you useless information, but I wanted to feel unique in and of itself, you know, like Split is a unique film in and of itself. That's what motivates me. So hopefully, if I do finish this story, and I hope I do, that it will feel unique in and of itself.
The answer to your question, did we discard any characters? Not by the time I came on board. By the time I came on board, the script was pretty much as it was. There would be some rewrites every now and again along the way, and you know, we'd be open to inspiration in the moment every now and again. But by and large, you know, I came on pretty late to this gig, and I didn't have 2 minutes to come up with one character, never mind 9. So I was wholly uninterested in whatever Knight had discarded up to that point, and only interested in what I had to do on screen. So no, we just concentrated what was on the page.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting actually, because I see in the way that I work, I see pretty much the most similarity between Robert and Knight. I feel, forgive me if I'm wrong, I feel very connected to you. I feel like we don't really need to talk that, like we talk for kind of enjoyment, but I have a sense of when I've done something that isn't aligned to his vision, and I can sort of be like, okay, no, I need another take. That wasn't perfect. That wasn't, you know, what you wanted. I want to give you what you want. Knight's very specific. Robert kind of, because it was his first, you know, time as a director, and it was my first time as an actor. We were kind of, both of us, finding our feet a little bit more, and we lent on each other really heavily, whilst I lent very heavily on Knight, and just completely trusted him and allowed him to sort of. I went to really dark places on this movie, and I felt very safe and protected with you. I think with Rob, you know, we're very good friends, but we were both kind of like hysterical at certain points of that movie. So yeah, I felt very safe on set. Happy?
Vi siete affidati totalmente al costumista? Che ragionamenti avete fatto per vestire le varie personalità nei modi che abbiamo visto nel film?
You know, that's an interesting question. Our costume designer is a wonderful, wonderful man from Madrid, and he brought his particular tastes to the table, which I love his taste. But it's a challenge because we didn't want to be caricature with any of the parts, and we had a physical issue, which is that he was very big for the movie. He got worked out, and he was much bigger than he is right now. So to make him feel like a boy, because like if he's in the wrong outfit, he looked like a skinhead and not a child, because he's so like strong. And then when he was Patricia, how to make it seem restrained and as opposed to a man in a dress. And so it was really these guys. They would come together, the costume designer and James would try on lots and lots of outfits and come and say, what do you think about these 3 or 4? And what do we think about scarves for Patricia? And those kind of things. How can we use the costumes? But it was him finding.
And rollerblades.
And rollerblades.
I had quite specific things that I wanted to try at least with each character, and I was very certain that Dennis should be buttoned up and that Dennis should be bound and restrained and and I was keen to have a jacket that looked like a straight jacket, and I kind of had one when I was a kid, so I was like, they are out there, and we found one that it was almost like a coat, like a straight jacket. Patricia, Paco was really worried. Paco, our amazing costume designer, had done the Danish girl, and so he'd had very recent previous experience with dressing a man as a woman. And he was really, really worried. I remember that I just didn't look anything like a woman. And I think with his experience and his form, he'd done really well at making a guy look like a woman. But I was like, dude, I don't think, at no point is Patricia disabused of the fact that she is, unfortunately for her, in a man's body. And she's been living with that her entire existence. And I think that's partly why she's a little bit angry. But it also plays into the jealousy that she has of the girls as well and what they have. But so I was quite keen to yes, definitely try and feminize myself. Feminize, yeah. Try and feminize myself or fem myself up, fembot myself. But at the same time, I was quite happy to have the juxtaposition of this person acting femininely and yet still unmistakably looking like a man. One of the great things that you do in your filmmaking is make your audience feel uncomfortable. And one of the great things I got to do as an actor, because of the characters you wrote, is make the audience feel uncomfortable. Not by even doing a thing, just by nature of the fact that you force an audience to watch things that they are, rightly or wrongly, and usually wrongly, uncomfortable with watching. So one of them is a 9-year-old boy in a man's body. That's just slightly disturbing. Because of all the implications of what that child might then be capable of and not in control of. And the same is true of a man in women's clothing. We just aren't comfortable with it yet, and yet you have to sit there watching it. So it was great to sort of play with the audience in those situations.
Anche perché una delle sue personalità disegna costumi, fa il costumista, no? Uno dei personaggi che lui interpreta, mentre la dottoressa è sempre vestita allo stesso modo, o ricordo male.
Yeah, I was actually, I was reading Alexander McQueen's biography when I was working on the movie's pre-production and learning about where he came from, and even some of the things that that you hear Barry say, or who we think is Barry in the movie, about clothes and all, actually Alexander McQueen's sensibilities and the things he said and the things he's interested in. And so the idea that one of the identities was interested in fashion gave us a little bit of latitude in my mind to have a breadth of looks for the different characters, as opposed to kind of a limited palette. And so it was a way to feel inspired.
Shyamalan. La prima è da dove è nata la decisione di fare un film sul disturbo di personalità multiple, magari sei stato ispirato da persone che hai realmente conosciuto o situazioni, e poi da padre quanto è stato difficile affrontare un tema delicato come gli abusi infantili.
Good questions. So one was I was chasing my wife in college, and she's a psychologist, And so I took all psychology courses to try to woo her, and started really loving classes inadvertently. So, you know, if she had been a gymnast, I guess all my movies would be about gymnasts, but she was a psychologist. And so DID came up in one of the classes, and I remember kind of becoming like so enamored with this subject. And since then I've been very obsessed with it. This character was written a long time ago. It was written about 15, 16 years ago. And some of the scenes, like when you meet Patricia and you meet Hedwig, those were written on paper by hand a long time ago. Literally word for word, you said what I wrote 15, 16 years ago. I'm going to show you the handwritten stuff.
Cool,
it's really cool. So this is unusual in that way, that it's been a long time coming. I've always, like, when I think of films, sometimes I go, wow, nobody's made a definitive movie about ghosts, or no one has made a definitive movie about this subject. I can't believe it. And I feel that way about this condition, that it's extraordinary and tragic and amazing, and how the mind defends itself. And you know, did you guys know the things I talked about in the movie, that one of the identities can have diabetes and the rest of them don't? That your body can change that much, that quickly with your thoughts. It doesn't seem possible. So those kind of things astound me. What was the second part? What was the second part? Do you remember?
Having tortures about, how did you deal with the child abuse?
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, you know, that is the provenance of this disorder, so I wanted to have it represented, that's part of the conversation, that this comes from a very, very tragic place, all of these things, and what does that do when a human being experiences the very worst thing that could happen to you repeatedly as a child? How does that transform you? What are the repercussions of that? And in a general way, because I have kids, I have girls, you know, as a writer, I think you're just, you know, acting out your worst fears constantly, like, you know, exercising them out. So, you know, home invasions, getting abducted, things like that are my urban nightmares, you know, just keep on talking them through to kind of, many ways, probably just to take their power away from me.
I think I just want to say a quick thing about how Night deals with sort of horrific things in general. The film has got some horrific events in it, in the past, in the flashbacks, and also in the present with what happens to the girls. And one of the journalists that came in earlier today mentioned it. You know, he says, look, there's no blood or guts or gore or, you know, bullets flying or people's heads getting chopped off or anything like that. But the film is incredibly scary and horrific at times. And that's because of the sensitivity with which you deal with that. But I think also with the child abuse, you don't sensationalise or titillate us with the horror of the reality that you're exploring, but you imply it and you make us feel no less sort of affected by it. You know, it's really deathly done.
Yeah.
Gentile del mattino, volevo chiederle qual è il suo rapporto con la TV, con le serie televisive. Ne ha fatte in passato, volevo sapere se nel suo futuro c'è un incremento in questo tipo di lavoro, perché sì o perché no. Grazie.
Well, you know, it's been a really fun experience working in television. You know, for me now, I think you guys can tell. I don't know if it's the same here in Italy, but it's certainly in the United States very prevalent. What I'm about to say, that more drama, character-driven storytelling has moved to television, because it's basically how connected you are to the characters to watch each week, right? And so drama directors, people that once upon a time could make dramas for the movie theaters, are not allowed to, or don't have the opportunity to. And television has grown in its quality level, and once upon a time the tone of a movie was the most important thing. Jack Nicholson in 5 Easy Pieces, it's a tonal masterpiece, and then I would recommend 5 Easy Pieces based on the tone, and that would cause people to come and watch the movie all year long, right? You just sit in the theater all year long and you go see Jack Nicholson in 5 Easy Pieces. Now marketability is the #1 thing for films. In television, tone is the most important thing. Oh, I heard Mad Men was great. I'm going to get AMC. It's what you feel about it. 2 million people watch Mad Men, but 100 million people heard it's great. The tone is great, and makes you feel something about their network. And so God is tone, and obviously that's an amazing thing for a filmmaker, a dramatic filmmaker like myself. That's the God over there. So that's fantastic. It is an isolating thing to make movies for me. I don't live in Los Angeles. I write and direct, so I get to meet wonderful actors every 2 years, right? And I make smaller movies in general. And television gives me a chance to work with an unbelievable amount of actors. I get to work with writers. I get to work with amazing directors. Like, for example, on Wayward Pines, I got to work with these twins, these two young guys, the Duffer Brothers, and they'd never done anything, and they came to my house, and we worked on Wayward Pines, and we'd talk, and we'd laugh, and joke, and drink, and this and that, and then they went off and made Stranger Things after Wayward Pines, and they had made the best show on television, and on and on and on. There's other, each of these filmmakers, writers, and directors. It's just I'm so lucky. So that part of it is amazing. Now the part that I struggle with is the control freak in me. So film, I can do everything and control it. Like, where's the line of supervising and not supervising? JJ, when he ran his shows, he was in the writer's room writing. He was writing and directing those things. But I'm primarily a filmmaker, so it's been an unusual process for me. But I hope to make more. It made me grow. I was taught a lot by everybody that I worked with.
Al regista Shyamalan volevo chiedere se, visto che questo è un progetto che nasce diversi anni fa, però se c'è un'ispirazione nella storia di Billy Milligan, che è stato un criminale con 23 personalità diverse che rapì e poi uccise 3 studentesse, e se riguardo prima la trilogia di cui parlava, se Split lo considera il sequel di Unbreakable. Grazie.
Well, I can't answer that last part there. So we'll and don't write that, okay? Be very protective if you guys can about the ending. Billy Mulligan was a huge inspiration. That book, The Minds of Billy Mulligan, I suggest you guys all read it. It's amazing. It's a documentation of the true case of Billy Mulligan, and he also had 24 personalities. And he was caught for a crime, and then once he was caught, they realized he had all of these identities, and he was a brilliant human being, and so the breadth of his identities was insane, because he was actually a genius by nature, and then this trauma happened to him. His identities were off the charts, they knew they could do incredible things because his IQ bandwidth was so large. So it's a very moving and powerful, interesting story there. So yeah, Billy Mulligan was a big deal.
Il tempo è scaduto, mi dicono abbiamo contingentamento assoluto e non possiamo derogare, quindi la conferenza stampa finisce qui. Ringrazio i nostri ospiti, ringrazio voi di essere stati qui.